Okay, so let's get started. I'm so glad you made it, Dr. Abdulsani, and everyone else for joining. Good evening, and thank you for joining us today. So while everyone is getting trickled in and settled in, I just want to welcome you to our athletic training virtual information session. We're definitely happy that you've joined us today, and this is definitely a great program. And we're going to cover a lot of content with Dr. Maggie Aldasani, who is the program director. So I'm excited that she's here today. So before we do that, I do want to introduce myself. My name is Shanika Watson, and I am the program manager for the Office of Graduate Studies here at the University of Miami School of Education and Human Development. So before we jump into your questions you submitted, I do want to cover some housekeeping items. So to start, we understand that your time is very valuable. So this session will be about 30 minutes long. So we want to make sure we get all of your questions answered, but we do recognize that we don't want to take up much of your time. So for if any reason you have to leave early, or if you're entering the session a little bit later, you are definitely going to get a recorded copy of this session so you can catch up on anything you've missed. This session is going to be definitely informative and exciting, but we do want to make sure this session is geared for you. So if you have any specific questions for Dr. Maggie Aldasani in regards to the content of the program, or if you have any questions in general, any additional questions, feel free to utilize the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. And our admissions coordinator will be monitoring the Q&A. And lastly, feel free to contact the Office of Graduate Studies for additional questions, and an applicant journey representative will speak to you. And the contact info is listed right here on the slide. So today's guests are Dr. Maggie Aldusani, Program Director for Athletic Training, Ms. Tanisha Hollinshed, Director of Office of Graduate Studies, and we have two special people and alumni, Stephen Lawson and current student Daniela Surratt from Athletic Training that's joining us today. With that being said, I do want to turn it over to Dr. Aldusani. Dr. Aldusani, thank you so much for joining us today. If you'll just take some time to share a little bit about yourself, what your role is here at the University of Miami, and your program.
You're on mute.
You're on mute.
So I said, thank you for putting it together. So my name is Maggie, and I have been at the university for 8 years. I tell people when I'm often talking to them about the program that I hold a unique view of it because I am an alumni of the program. I did my bachelor's in athletic training at the University of Miami. I also have a bachelor's degree in psychology from UM as well. And then I went on to work for the UM football team. So I've been a clinician for UM. And then I went to PT school, not at UM, had to leave and come back a little, experience different things. Worked in the ICU with neuro, stroke, spinal cord patients, kind of took a step away from sports medicine, and then came back 8 years ago to teach, and have been the program director for the last 3 years for the graduate athletic training program at UM. So I always tell people I came back 8 years ago because I love UM. I love this program. It's something I didn't experience in grad school, was that kind of family atmosphere, and open door policy and accessibility with my faculty. And I missed it when I went from undergrad to grad. And so I made sure that when I came back and when I had the opportunity to be program director, to foster that for the students. So that's what I hope to foster for them, is mentorship and accessibility and guidance and all the things that, you know, help make the process a little smoother, because grad school is never fun, no matter what you're doing.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your intro. You definitely wore many hats. So and devoted to the you, of course. So we definitely appreciate you taking the time to be here with us. So for those of you who are just now joining us, thank you so much for joining us today. And we're going to be discussing this athletic training program. So please utilize our Q&A feature to ask any questions you may have. And this session is definitely designed for you. So let's get started with questions. So Dr. Aldusani, where there's a student that wants to know, or prospective student for that matter, wants to know where can he or she do the practicum portion of the master's program? And is it possible that it can be done in the Master's of Athletic Training?
Yeah, so our program actually has required practicum components throughout the way. If you look at the sample plan of study, we're a 2-year program, so it's 60 credits over 2 years. And then except for your first semester, within every semester, there is actually a practical or practicum component. It's just named different things. Sometimes it's named practicum, sometimes it's named field experience, sometimes it's named clinical immersive experience. So it just kind of depends on the semester. But it depends on which of the practicums we're talking about, how much input the student has as to their placement. So I think the two things that make our program unique when it comes to practicums is the two biggest opportunities where the student can work with the coordinator of clinical education, who's one of my colleagues, in order to determine their own placement. So they can request, I would like to go to this state, this location, and we'll try and build a contract. There's two opportunities for that. One is between the summer of their first and second year, there's a 6-week rotation. And then the second one, and I think the more important one, is a 15-week rotation at the end of your second year. So at that point, you have all your didactic and clinical skill sets, and you should really be looking to do that rotation in a setting that you want to work in. So if I know I want to work in the NFL, or I know, for instance, our alumni that's here with us, his name is Stephen Lawson, he went to chiropractic school. So he made sure his last rotation was with an ATC who was also a chiropractor. A young lady who graduated with him that wanted to go to PT school, her last rotation was in a PT clinic where she worked alongside a PT AT. And Daniela is a first-year student. Well, her summer rotations with the NFL, with the Chicago Bears this summer, she wants to work in the NFL. So we don't know where her last rotation is going to be, but it's probably going to be something with football. We're just not sure yet. It's going to be pro, collegiate, what part of the country. But we're working to help in those two opportunities, work with the students to get them on their designated path of what sport they want to work with. You're either have an opportunity at some point, you have to make a tough decision as a new clinician going out in the field. My colleague always gives us advice, and I think she's right. You either pick the sport you want to work or the city you want to work in. But it would be very difficult as a new clinician. We'll use Miami as an example to say, I want to work Miami Division I football. Okay, well, there's only two schools that do that. So maybe there's 3 or 4 people on the staff. You're looking at, you have an opportunity of 6 to 8 jobs. That's a bigger pool. But if you go with some of the Olympic sports, there's one person that does it. So now you have 2 jobs in the city that do rowing at a D1 school. Well, maybe you need to broaden your scope of what you're looking for. You can still get a D1 rowing job. It just might not be in Miami, Florida. Or you say, I'm going to work in Miami, Florida, but I'm going to take any sport collegiately, different, and it opens it up. So I think you can work towards what you want, but you might at the beginning have to give and take a little, is what I tell people. You're not going to, some people do, some people come right out of school and they get their dream job, and congratulations to them. But I think you have to be a little bit, I don't know, like strategic when you're applying for jobs. Are you looking to work a sport? Or are you looking to stay in a city because of relationships, family, lifestyle, whatever might hold you to that city?
And I see that's definitely something to factor in, looking at all those different measures that you mentioned. So thank you for sharing that. And how many students are in each classroom? How accessible are faculty and graduate administration?
So I think some of the graduate administrators are on the call with you, and I would say they're very accessible. I find to be a strange school in the sense that we're this big power sports school, and people come to visit our campus, and it's actually rather small. I think you can cross our campus in about 15 minutes. And what I like is the accessibility within reason. I can go upstairs and be like, hi, people in the graduate school, like, please help me. And they could come downstairs and say the same thing. And we have that same relationship with our students. So there's 4 core faculty. The cohort's about 10 to 15 students, depending on the year. Stephen's cohort was a little smaller because it was the first master's cohort. So he had 4 students in his cohort and 1 left for military leave. So he had an usually like smaller cohort. We've only been a graduate program for 3 years. Before that, we were in undergraduate program for, I think, over 18 years. It might've been 19 or 20. And there, the cohorts were a little bit larger when they were in undergrad. We were probably looking at like 15 to 18 students for a cohort. Yeah, I would say the university's mission is to have small class sizes. So we're aligned with that. The university likes low student to instructor ratio. Even in their undergraduate courses, you're looking at about 40 to 45 students. So our goal is about 10 to 15, as I said. When you start talking about labs, we won't go over 10 unless it's gross anatomy, in which case we would have 15 students. So that purpose is because our lab is smaller. but it works towards our benefit because it allows the teacher to have individualized attention with each student. If I'm a student, when I went to PT school, I was one of 50. And I told you, I felt like I was lost in a sea of students and I was just like a tuition dollar or a number. The only way that they knew who you were as faculty is if you were at the top or bottom of your class. And I didn't like that feeling. It was basically like, you almost don't want them to know your name. It might mean you're failing out. And so, but I didn't like it because sometimes the person that would be giving you feedback would be a lab assistant and not the teacher who's grading you on the practical. I think it's very important that here, when you have a small cohort size for the lab, if the cohort grew to 20, you would still have 10 and 10 in the lab. We're not going to go over 10 for the lab because we want that person who's grading you to have been able to give you constructive criticism. I think that's academic fairness and just the way we like to design the program.
Excellent. That's definitely important. And you definitely make a point with that. And do students graduating have a decent chance at the careers of their choice, whether it be professional sports or collegiate sports medicine?
Yeah, I would say professional sports, obviously much harder. If you're looking at the nation compared to all athletic trainers in the nation, it's less than 5% that work in professional sports. So it's obviously a harder pathway, but we have alumni who work. They're alumni of our undergraduate program, not our graduate program, because our graduate program is new, but we have alumni that work in professional sports. And we probably get at least one student a year that does an internship with professional sports. Our students tend to gravitate towards professional soccer right now. We have a full sprinkling of professional football, but for the most part, that's where our students have. I have a student who I suspect, it's not official yet, but he is in that 15-week full-time immersive experience with a professional soccer team who he had done the same rotation in the 6 weeks with. And they told him that at the end of these 15 weeks that they're going to offer him a job, and he's a new grad. So, that's a great opportunity. I think that's the point of these long rotations, is to network within them, to open up job opportunities, whether it's with that organization or a neighboring organization, to leverage those connections. There are a lot of big power sports schools to get your master's in athletic training with, but we have the most alumni working in pro sports. And I think it would be foolhardy to not use that to your advantage as a student. It's rare to come to a location that's a power R1 research institution. And I get it. Some people on this call are going to be like, hate research. And I'm like, yeah, I get it. So did I, because I didn't understand it and I didn't have exposure to it. But let's try it out before you decide that you hate it. Or if you hate it, just smile while you do it, right? And then two, you're a big power sports school. You have a lot of opportunities. Then we're this multicultural, diverse city. You have a lot of opportunities that you're not going to find. Usually you have to pick and choose big research institution versus big sports school. You should leverage your network when you're here. I think that's part of the idea of going to, private institutions a little bit more expensive. But what you get, some of the bang for your buck, is that Stephen has graduated 6 months ago, and he has my cell phone. He can call me. He can call any of the core faculty if he needs help, or just to chat and say, hey, life's going well, it's not going well. And I think that's very important, to leverage those connections, not only when you first graduate, that we help people get placed in positions. We don't have a formal placement as much as we use our connections to help get people placed. I get job offers every day that I send out to the graduating cohort that's looking for athletic trainers. So definitely there's a shortage of athletic trainers in the country. You'll 100% get a job, but like I said, you're going to have to sometimes make tough decisions about sport versus location. But using your UM connections is sort of the point, in my opinion, to paying, maybe a private school's tuition.
I appreciate you sharing that. And what major is the best to pursue during undergrad?
I think that depends on what program director you ask, but since you're asking me, I would say if you're a University of Miami student, I tell people exercise physiology or psychology, something that has a background in the sciences, so you have exposure to some of the harder coursework of anatomy and physiology. Having a strong anatomy basis is the most important thing you can do in undergrad, regardless, because you'll go to some institutions that maybe don't have that major. Or for instance, I tell students myself, I'm not a physiology person, I'm an anatomy person. So if you had told me that my only path to athletic training was through exercise phys, I would never have been an athletic trainer. I'm just going to be honest. No, right? I love my colleagues, but my brain does not work on that microscopic level. I have to see it. I'm like a kinesthetic learner. I need gross movement. When you start talking about the Krebs cycle, my eyes glaze over and I'm like, ooh, what's happening here? And so if it's not your niche, don't think like it has to be exercise phys. It usually has to be something in science, exercise science, right? We're a little apprehensive, but I take psychology majors too. Obviously, I was a psychology major. Before I joined sports medicine, I was a marine science major. Before that, I was a history major. If I had a really great candidate, there's a guy I went to PT school with that was an astronaut at NASA in his previous life. I don't think program directors are going to discriminate if you have strong prereqs. But what would help you would be to have that physiology anatomy background. But if you're a strong student and you can say, I just fell in love with this a little too late in life, if you have strong prereq sciences, you're going to be set up in an okay place. Put in your personal statement why you maybe are a history major. I don't think it's the moment to change your major and like add a 5th or 6th year of college. I think you put it in your personal statement, you justify why you were on the course you were in and what inspired you to change your career. And you make sure that you have some of the top sciences because you're competing with other candidates. But I would be less concerned. My only thought would be, I tell my students, be a little careful about some of the tracks in case you have a life crisis and don't want to major in that. It's going to be hard to transition that into a job. Like, let's say you don't want to become an athletic trainer, you don't want to become a PT or a nurse, and your major was just specializing in that. Make sure it's something you can transition and still use in the workforce.
Thank you so much for sharing. There was a lot of vital information, so we definitely appreciate it. So now let's turn it over to the alumni and current students. Stephen Lawson and Daniela Surratt, we're definitely happy to have you here today. So if Stephen, if you can start off by sharing a little bit about yourself before we get into some questions.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. So my name is Stephen Lawson. I'm an alumni. I graduated back in May of last year, 2022. I was a part of that first cohort in the program. And so that was actually an amazing time. But I started out at UM in 2013, undergrad exercise physiology major. And I proceeded into graduate studies at UM for my athletic training master's degree. And now I'm actually sitting in class because I just finished class at Life University, one of the best chiropractic schools in the world. But that's a little bit about me.
Thank you so much. Daniela, if you can go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Daniela Surratt. I'm a first-year master's student at UM, and I'm from Chicago. I went to the University of Illinois in Champaign-Urbana, and I was actually a sport management major, but I worked with the Illinois football team for 4 years in athletic training, and that's what kind of got me into the profession, what got me into deciding to apply to the master's program.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So now for some questions. Let's start off with Daniela. What type of internship mentoring program do you recommend while in the program?
I think this kind of ties into answering another type of question, but with UM, the way that it's structured, it gives you a lot of freedom and flexibility to get those internships and mentorships that you are interested in, just so you have an opportunity to try out something that you might want to do in your career later down the line. And I think that like specifically with this program, being a really good self-advocate is really important, because using resources like Maggie, like our other professors, can really help you get to where you want to go. They're always there to answer the phone. You can knock on their door in their office. They're always there to help you out. And for me specifically, Maggie kind of touched on this, but I've always wanted to go into the NFL, and getting my internship in the NFL for over this upcoming summer, a lot of that was taking advice from Maggie, from our clinical coordinator of education, Dr. Wilmoth, from just talking to them and their connections, and the connections of their connections, and just networking and finding the best spot for me, and thinking about what that type of internship, what that could do to enhance my career and just make me a better clinician. So just the freedom of having the chance to do that, having the ability to leave Miami and go to Chicago to spend the summer there working with the Bears. Not a lot of there aren't a lot of programs that allow you to leave campus to do those things, and that's a really important thing. And a really huge reason why I chose this program was because of that freedom. They really just want you to find an opportunity wherever you can, and it's not just limited to South Florida. So that was a huge thing for me in getting my internship.
Thank you so much for that. Stephen, what is the most valuable thing you learned from this program to be successful? And what was the most challenging experience you had?
So as a clinician, whether I was working as an athletic trainer or once I finished chiropractic school as I'm working as a chiropractor, the most important thing that I learned from UM was how to take a patient's history. And that's something that the professors came through and they class after class repeatedly put us through in our internships. They made sure you got experience. Hey, look, this is a new client. We're going to come in. You're going to sit here. You're going to watch me do it. You know, witness how it gets done. And then we're going to put you in situations where you have to do it. In class, they'll go through all of the steps, put you through the paces. These are the important things that you need to cover. These are the things you're going to hit to make your basis for interpretation later, because the history is probably the most important thing that you can do as a clinician. And it's a lot of the verbal aspect. Even before you put your hands on a person, just being able to talk and communicate with your patient and understand what's going on with them without jumping to conclusions on your side. A lot of times you probably have experienced this, you've gone to the doctor and you tell them that, oh, this is something that's going wrong. And then before you even finish everything that you want to say, they're like, oh, boom, and we're going down this path. But you haven't allowed them to finish talking about everything. So now, as a clinician, taking that patient history, being patient, listening first, and then going through and making decisions later based on everything that you've heard, that's probably like A1, the most important thing that the program taught.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that.
I
Danielle,
know there was a second part to the question, right? What's the most
yes, the
challenging?
most challenging.
Getting over the fear of being wrong. This is something that you will definitely challenge you in the program, because everyone comes in with a different level of background. It's okay to be wrong, especially when you're learning. Some of the things that I remember the most now are the things that I got wrong in the classroom, the things that I got wrong in the clinic. It's okay to be wrong because you're a student. You have someone there behind you to make sure that it's right. When you get into clinic and your clinician tells you, go ahead, take it, okay? Never back away from it. It's all right. They won't let you hurt anyone. I promise. They won't let you hurt anyone. But getting that hands-on experience is going to be good for you. Just the overcoming the fear of putting your hands on someone, overcoming the fear of making a wrong decision. Because if you do make a wrong decision now, they're there to be like, all right, so why did you make that decision? Okay. And now you're able to talk to and think about that. Because my first job coming out of UM, once I became licensed, I was on my own as an athletic trainer for a junior college. There was no one behind me. There was no one holding my hand, and things got a little crazy a couple of the days. So make the mistakes now and make them, you know, I know nobody wants to make mistakes, but do things, make them now, and you'll be good later on.
Awesome. That was some good sound advice. Good tips for everyone. Awesome. Okay, so let's move on. Daniela, can you talk about your interaction with faculty throughout the program? Just touch on that a little bit. And what was your level of engagement that you've experienced with them?
Yeah, so I mean, Maggie touched on this. The size of our cohort and the faculty that we have, it's very tight knit, and we, even if some of those faculty members aren't teaching our classes every day, we still, you know, are always seeing each other at our class building or just honestly around campus. I know that I have a great relationship with Maggie, and that started with before I even was accepted into the program, when I got on a Zoom call with her when I was still a senior in college, and that call just like it just having that relationship with your program director is just really important, and I felt that immediately when I was on the phone with her, and I knew that I wanted to find a place where I was really comfortable to advocate for myself or to express if I have an issue with anything. And I knew from the start that if I had any of those problems, I'd feel comfortable talking to Maggie about that. And like, you know, we'd have each other's cell phone numbers. She makes a big effort to give everybody her cell phone number, even if people are texting her probably later than we should be, but she's always very available. And I think that makes the world of difference. You know, I've had classes or been in programs where the person leading me doesn't make themselves very available, and it can really affect the way that you learn and the way that you are in that program. And so like my interactions with all the faculty members are great. They are always open to, like, you know, us texting them, emailing them. I ask them all for advice on a lot of things. If I'm early to class, I'll stop in one of their offices. I'll see them around, and it's like it really does feel like a family. Like, even if that sounds corny, that really is what it is. And there's such a small like the group of us is so small, and we're all just super close. And I think if I was in a program where I didn't feel like I had that connection with my program director or the faculty members, I don't think I would be able to do everything that I've been able to do this far, because they're just always there to help you, whether that's with a class, with a clinical rotation, or just with life. They're always open to just talk to you about anything you need, and that was important for me.
Awesome. Thank you for that. There's a question I'm going to ask, but it's going to be for both of you, because I think this is a very, very important question to ask that everyone would probably want to know the answer to. So, Stephen, what is the best thing this program has to offer? And then Daniela, you can answer after Stephen, that same particular question.
Did my mic on mute? Okay. The best thing this program has to offer is going to be the faculty and staff. The information you can get anywhere, but the faculty and staff, the level of interest that they have in your success, the level of care that most of them have and direct towards you, is very different and distinct. I don't find many programs where, like Daniela said, Maggie gives you we have her phone number. I call her to this day,
That's
and
awesome.
ask her for things all the time. And the great thing is I actually met Maggie while I was in undergrad. So I've been able to contact and reach out to her from way back then. So me and Maggie go back almost 7 years now. So like the relationship has just built and grown, and in the program, you know, after so much time with the person, you know, you see them and you just know when they're having not like a bad day. She will come through and be like, what's going on? Talk to me. How's it going? What can I do to help? You don't find that in a lot of programs, and it's not just Maggie. The other professors are like that as well. And I think that's incredible and non-replaceable. You can't get that everywhere, and you're not going to find it at many other institutions.
And Daniela, that was awesome. That was like a great sales pitch. Go ahead, Daniela.
Okay, I agree with Stephen, but I'll give another answer for the sake of the question. But for me, I think the best thing that this program has to offer that I didn't find in any other program that I looked into when I was applying is that structured freedom that I was kind of mentioning before. It's the way that this program is formatted between classes, the things you're learning in those classes, your clinical rotations, where you are, the length that you're at these places, and then the opportunity that the program gives to you that to go out and go wherever you want to go and find an opportunity that fits you the best. There are programs that I saw that would say like we require students to be here over the summer for this class and this rotation, and that was almost like an immediate no for me, just because I knew that whether I ended up being in Miami for those times or not, I wanted the ability to look for other opportunities. And knowing that I'm going to be leaving campus for the summer, I think it's a really big deal to have that opportunity, because any type of internship is hard to get no matter what level you're at. And if that's limited to just geography, then I think that really doesn't benefit everyone. So that's a huge thing for me, and that was a huge selling point for the program. But also what Stephen was saying, like I knew Maggie, I met Maggie before I was in this program. I met her my senior year of undergrad, and I came to campus, I went on a tour with her, and from that moment I was always able to contact her with anything I needed to do that with, and that was another huge selling point. So the freedom and obviously the faculty too.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you, Stephen and Daniela, for sharing your experiences. I'm quite sure Dr. Al-Dusani's feeling the love right now, right?
I will say to the people on Zoom, they're overinflating a little bit. I am accessible, but what I would advise people, usually when they talk to me, I give this advice, even if you don't come here, if you can get a program director on the phone or an administrator of the program on the phone, the biggest thing you can ask them is, in my opinion, about accessibility, if you value it. If you don't value it, the biggest thing you should ask is about their clinical plan of study, because a lot of the programs, we all publish our academic plan of study, but we don't publish our clinical. So when you're making your pro-con list, all the programs start to look the same, because to Stephen's point, we all have to teach the same thing. We do it in different orders, but accreditation forces us all to teach the same thing. And so you have to really like ask people, how are they setting up their clinics? And it might be a way that creates a pro or con column for you as a, so that's a piece of advice for people on.
Thank you so much. So I know we're coming towards the end of our session. So before we wrap up, Dr. Al-Dusani, is there anything else that you want to share that we might have missed or have not discussed that you would like to share with us?
I don't know, Stephen, Daniela, did I miss anything? I'll put the pressure on my students and ex-students. No, I would say, like, as I said in my introduction, I think it's what Stephen echoed. I came back for the U family atmosphere and feeling. It's why I came back to work at UM. I cherish it. I make sure that I foster it. I hope that my faculty that work alongside me, my colleagues, I have a great team. To both the students' point, it's not just me. There's 3 other people. They're just as accessible, just as kind, and just as nice. And I think that's really important. People that don't want to be accessible wouldn't stick around our program because we instill it so much. So, but it's really important to me. Like, I have students, I know as much about their personal life as they care to share, but Stephen's also been someone who's come to me and said, you look like you're having a rough day. You okay? So I think it goes both ways. I think that's really the U family, and being part of a program that feels like you matter, and that you have a cheerleading team behind you for time that you're here, but also this network to build upon when you graduate is really what I would want in an institution and try to foster.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. So let's shift gears, and now let's have Ms. Tanisha Hollenshed, Director of Office of Graduate Studies, share any additional information.
I just would like to thank everybody for attending this info session. I mean, like Shanika said at the beginning, Dr. Maggie Al-Dusani and the athletic training faculty here in the School of Education The program is a great program. The faculty, like she said, or like they said, they're very, very accessible. They have, open door policy, and they're friendly. It is a family atmosphere here. And even in our office, the administrative part of it, we will support any of our students from finish to end. So if you decide to come to the University of Miami or apply to the School of Education, then know that you will have the support that you need to complete your degree successfully.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So I can't think of a better way to end our session, but before we do, I do want to encourage those prospective students who are attending today that have not started their application or want to start after this session is done, what the application requirements are. To submit your application online, we're going to ask for the following: your transcript, resume, personal statement, 3 letters of recommendation. One has to be from a certified athletic trainer, a 3.0 GPA, no GRE required. And lastly, our summer 2023 admissions deadline is on May 1st, 2023. Now for the good stuff. For the first 20 people that submit their application and get admitted, the matriculation fee, which is known as a deposit, will be waived. So you can go ahead and scan the QR code on the screen using your phone. So again, make sure to get your application in. And if you have any questions, by any means, you can always contact us at the Office of Graduate Studies by either email at SEHD_admission@miami.edu or by phone 305-284-SEHD. And one of us will definitely help you. But we do hope that you will join the athletic training program soon. And Dr. Maggie Aldosani, Stephen Lawson, Daniela Surratt, and Tanisha Hollenshed, again, thank you so much for your time and being here with us today. It was definitely a pleasure. And we hope you all enjoyed this session and hope you have an excellent night.